It all started with a girl who loved a game and was literally a fan of one of the characters. She watched and watched him all day long, hoping that everything would end well. It was such a great love that she even has a favorite t-shirt with his portrait on it, without which she never appears on the street. For months now, the girl has been doing nothing but watching him, even though she realizes that this is not a real person and she will never be able to see him in real life. At some point, she has already passed all the levels except the last one. The girl deliberately postponed this moment to prolong the feeling of intrigue. She really wants to know the end of the story, but at the same time, does not want to realize that there will be no other levels and she will have to find something new. As soon as she decided to do it and found out how it all ended, the girl just could not believe her eyes. She believed that her favorite will be happy and everything will end with something good. But unfortunately, on her way home she learns the terrible news and doesn't notice how she falls on the floor and stops noticing everything around her. Despite the heavy rain, her thoughts are only about one thing: whether the worst thing she was so much afraid of has happened. William is dead, and there will be no more levels where it seems like it was a joke or someone imagined something. It really did happen for real, and that's where the game ends. The girl looked up at the sky and suddenly started praying that it wasn't true. Could anyone really be genuinely worried about some character who wasn't even a real person? At that moment, it seems to her that if she had been there for him, and if she had had the opportunity to be in that situation, she would never have let him die and would have been able to protect him. As suddenly, because of inattention and carelessness, literally a few meters appears a huge truck. It turns out that the girl was sitting right on the road where cars can pass. She only saw the light of the headlights as everything happened as if in a fog. But that's not all. In the very last seconds, she starts hearing voices and realizes they sound like they're from a game. Then, she finds herself in some room and feels that the atmosphere has changed very abruptly. Opening her eyes, she saw a familiar silhouette and still could not open her eyes fully to clearly see the person in front of her. After that, it felt like she was out of control of her body, and what she was saying for a few minutes, her body felt like it wasn't listening, and her soul felt very sorry for something. After a few minutes, she opens her eyes and sees before her the characters she saw in that very game. Is it really? The girl got into another reality and found herself in the body of one of the characters. As soon as she was addressed by the name Lily, she immediately realized that it was her who was being addressed. The girl looked around, and until now did not even notice that she was in a terrible place. She gets up and for some reason starts crying, as she still has no control over her emotions and words. Apparently, this is so that no one will guess that this is not the real Lily they know. This will continue until the girl herself enters the role. One of the main men comes up to her and asks if she's okay. He's got some kind of black mask on his face, behind which you can't see his eyes at all, but even so, she recognizes who it is. Anyway, here's the situation. She ended up in this place where Lily was mourning the death of her favorite. The guy asked her to pull herself together, not to let her emotions get the best of her, and then he told her that from this day on, she would become a student of the academy. But it was unclear what that had to do with what was going on here. As it turned out, the girl got it all wrong again. She was only crying because she was still sad and thought she was still in that world, on the road on her way home. But now she was in a school of magic for vampires, and it seems this character is one of them. Lily immediately understood everything and remembered this place. There is a magical atmosphere everywhere, but it is very kind and not at all evil, as is usually the case in other academies. Though maybe it's just a misleading first impression, and most likely it's not as beautiful as it may seem at first glance. There are different objects flying everywhere. Some people have started to show their skills, especially that guy in the mask. Lily is literally frozen in one place because she still cannot realize the situation. It seems to her that this is a dream or a vision before death. She refuses to believe that everything around her is real. She looks at these people and can't believe that just yesterday she was looking at them through a phone screen and now she's in their midst. She's starting to get confused by all these moving portraits, flying things, and an academy rector who has a strange appearance. With every passing minute, there is a feeling that this is not a dream after all, but a new reality that we have to accept. Just a second later, the girl remembered one very important point that worries you the most. Since she got into this game, it means that there must be a darkness principle somewhere. Accordingly, it means that if she tries hard enough, she can see him and even hear his voice live. Just as she had dreamed all these months, Lily knew that it was impossible. But now, everything impossible becomes possible. She immediately started to have a lot of excitement because he could be literally anywhere. She could meet him even on her way to her room, and it's just unbelievable. It sounds too fantastic, at least for now. She begins to remember his beautiful raven wing-colored hair, the beautiful contours of his face that could be admired forever, the gorgeous fingers on his hands, the physique you can see even when he's sitting, and overall every part of his body literally drives her crazy. Everything about this man is perfect. Lily is afraid to even think about how happy she would be if they were to fall in love, if that were even possible. It is the same William, whom she just adores. He is her favorite, for the sake of which the girl went through all the levels without exception to find out what will happen in the end and whether he will be happy. She just remembered the look in his eyes, and she doesn't know how many minutes later she'll faint. She likes him so much that she'll probably pass out as soon as they're even in the same room. After that, the girl begins to thank fate for such a wonderful gift. She could not even dream of it, and now she has every chance to see William in person. She wants to be in this game forever, and of course, hope that someday she can touch him, or at least visit his house. Anyway, until she sees him live, she'll think it's not real after all, and it's just a dream that's too realistic. She thought that the first mission, without which being in this world has no meaning, would be to touch him, no matter how hard it would be. If she didn't do it, she would never forgive herself. After some time, she by some miracle found herself in the same room with him, and despite the fact that it was some important meeting, she went to the center of the room and started to walk right up to him. It was noticed by his assistants and were surprised that the girl even allows himself. Since she thinks it's a dream, such a deed was given much easier. She is sure that for this nothing will happen, because everything is not real, although she is very much mistaken and very soon to be convinced of it. Everyone started talking and asking to know in which dormitory she was waiting. In the history of the academy, none of the students had ever approached the director of the dormitory so easily. Some of them were even afraid to look in his direction, especially if he was in a bad mood. Everyone started talking very quietly, as if she had better stop and not get too close to him, because there was no telling how he would react and how it would all end. The closer Lily gets to William, the less she begins to doubt that it's a dream. Accordingly, she begins to worry a lot and even regret a little that she underestimated the reality of what is happening. Lily looks at him with huge eyes and can't believe that her dream can come true in just a few seconds. Everything depends only on her, or rather, on her courage. She started to ask a lot of questions, including one like, would it be okay if she tried to touch him? It's really hard to do because he's looking at her like if she makes one more wrong move, she'll regret it so much. After that, she thought it best to calm down and finish the job, because there might never be another chance like this. Eventually, she did get very close to him, and judging by the look in her eyes, he didn't like something already. The guy clearly didn't expect something like this from her. He asks what she's going to do and hints that someone should go back down and make no mistake. He looked at her with his special look, but even that didn't affect her decision. Lily smiled and said that she had to do it after all and wouldn't give up her dream for anything. She did it after all, and of course her happiness was boundless. She started smiling as if nothing more pleasant and joyful had ever happened in her life before. At this point, everyone is watching from the sidelines and doesn't understand what's going on. Some thought it was some kind of a joke, and some started to get very scared because at any second, William could develop a very strong. And then not only she will regret it, but also those who stopped her along the way. It's a very strange situation. We can only hope that a miracle will happen, and Lily will stay here for at least a few more days. As soon as the girl calmed down and realized that she had fulfilled her most cherished dream, the guy grabs her hand, and it seems that from that moment on, she is once and for all convinced that this is not a dream and should have listened from the first time when he tried to warn her. He asked her to stop and never do it again. Instead of apologizing, she was frozen in one place again, because now she not only touched him, but also heard a beautiful voice. But what exactly he said interested her much less than the fact that she heard it. He immediately looked at the other students and hinted that she should be taken somewhere immediately, preferably far away. She was immediately yelled at and asked how she dared to do such a thing to the director of the dormitory, something that even his colleagues and friends were afraid to do, not to mention ordinary students. Right after that, the guy in the mask turned to her and asked her what had just happened. The girl didn't hesitate for a second and answered as it really was, without making up anything. She said she was just doing her wish in a dream and didn't see anything wrong with it, which is exactly what no one expected to hear. At this moment, this was the first time she had seen the academy director so angry. She wondered if this was such a serious mistake that even in a dream she would have to be punished. In the end, for delaying the ceremony and disrespecting the dorm director, he takes 60 points off on her and says it's still a very light punishment, so she should be grateful. It is not surprising that immediately began various discussions, rumors, and much more. Such a situation could not be ignored. It will be talked about for at least a few days, and maybe even weeks more. Surprisingly, unlike the rest of the students, the girl doesn't look like she doesn't like something at all. On the contrary, she continues to be amazed at what she was able to do, and even smiles as if everything is fine. After this, she'll be remembered for a long time. And yet, the ceremony must go on. So the director started with the most important thing. He offered her a choice of several dormitories to live in. Now she had to choose one of the several options. It was strange because some people thought that after such a prank she might even be expelled, or at least not given any choice. Some rows appeared in front of her in a transparent dome that determines the most suitable dormitory for each of the students. If you drop something on her, her color will change to match Lily's. Since the girl knows this, there was nothing surprising or unusual about it for her. At this point, one of the assistant directors joined the conversation. She offered to talk and explain about the 3 beautiful dorms in this game. A castle for knights who respect discipline. A dormitory is the first thing a girl will choose. Dormitory 2, the castle of the city of kings. It's inhabited by real madmen who fear nothing. And the third option, the castle of beauty lovers, is a stunning place for those who love tranquility and do not want to live in a gloomy atmosphere. Since the independent girl cannot make her own choice, she has only to hope that after a special liquid is sprinkled on the rose, it will show the color that means the first dormitory. She really wants it to be like this because if she ends up in a crazy dormitory, it's not going to go according to plan. At this point, the other students began to hope that she would end up anywhere but in the dorm where they lived. Except that at one point, the color of the rose changed to a white color that no one expected to see. This had never happened in the history of the academy. It's a very interesting and unusual situation because the dorm that means white just doesn't exist. No one understands what it means anyway. We can only hope it doesn't mean something bad. At one point, one of the attendees started telling me that he had heard a story about how a student had once made a rose bloom white, all because that student wasn't a vampire. This student was the final boss of the game that destroyed William. The girl's name was Carmilla. Does it really? It turns out that Lily, who adored him more than any other character, has gotten into the body of the student who was supposed to destroy him. Everyone looked at her with a suspicious look, as if she were an enemy pretending to be a harmless student. Only there is one very important moment when they find out that there is one among them who is not a vampire. A dinner is arranged, at which the main course is the one whose rose is white in color. If she survives, that's the only way she'll be able to stay in the academy and survive. And since everyone here has magic and is a real vampire, that will be very difficult and almost impossible. Everyone immediately started laughing at the top of their voices as if they had been waiting for this moment. Did everyone start hating Lily from day one for something that wasn't even her fault? It's very unfair and wrong. After that, everyone started asking William's opinion. The moment the other 2 of his colleagues got excited, he stopped talking and was thinking about something. The first dormitory director can't contain his smile. He got very excited, looked at the girl with an ominous look, and let her know that she didn't have long to stay. The second, who runs the beauty hostel, also supports this idea and believes that the girl cannot be one of them. But at the same time, calmly and safely leave here will not let her. But the third, her favorite William, has been thinking about something for a long time and still can't decide what he thinks about it. At one point, when one of the students came up to her and wanted to immediately start preparing for dinner, the girl was very scared and started hoping for some kind of miracle. She regretted that she had gotten into this game and attracted too much attention to herself. Suddenly, William asked everyone to stop and said that it was too noisy. On the one hand, he saved the girl from one of the students, but on the other hand, it's possible that he didn't let him do it just because he wanted to take revenge personally. He said that if everyone around here considers themselves students of this academy, they should refrain from making bad remarks in anyone's direction. He reads that a vampire shouldn't lose their mind over situations like this. Everyone should control themselves like they were taught to do. Afterwards, he asked Lily to calm down a bit and realize what was acceptable to do here and what wasn't, because if it happened a second time, the dinner jokes would come true. At this moment, the girl can't believe that despite this remark, William has protected her. If it wasn't for him, she would have been attacked by someone long ago, and would have left several wounds at least. After that, other principals started talking to him and convincing him otherwise. They don't understand why he forgives this student, because just now, she showed her disrespect to at least one person. The guy doesn't know how to explain it properly, but still, made it clear that his decision is off the table now, and if anyone wants to discuss it, it can be done any other day. In the end, in order not to leave her without punishment, Lily has to stay for some time in this space. Not even William could protect her from that. The guy decided that if he forgives her too much, someone might think that he went special to her and there is some hidden relationship between them. The girl was taken to some small room and left there alone, since she can't get out. There's no point in leaving a guard or anyone else behind. She tried to knock very loudly at first, but then she calmed down and realized that there was no point. It would be better to just wait for someone and not make another mistake by drawing attention to herself. So she only adds to the number of enemies who want revenge or make her life harder. At this point, she starts to remember her favorite, like she wants to meet him again. At one point, the girl hears a sound like someone opening a door and coming right towards her. She purposely started to move, so the person would realize that she was right there and needed help. By some miracle, Lily finds a gap and can see the man who has entered the small house. It turns out to be William. He starts to look for something in the small drawers and doesn't even pay attention to her. He starts talking to himself, and from his words, he's obviously looking for some hidden object. After a few minutes, he finds some blue jar and starts smiling with a very sinister look, like he's planning to do something bad. It turns out there is holy water inside. Very interesting what he needs it for and why he reacted to it as if it could be used to destroy someone. It turns out it wasn't exactly William. There's another character in this game that looks a lot like him, and also they're enemies. The girl realized that if she didn't try to do something, William would be in danger. She must urgently run to the dormitory and help her favorite. But to do this, at least, need to be at liberty and get out of this confined space. She starts to remember the plot and realizes that just after the ceremony, there will be a tea party where someone is planning to poison William. Accordingly, since he is a real vampire, he can be easily and effortlessly poisoned with holy water, just like any other vampire. Lily has decided that her only goal now is to save the guy and do everything she can to make sure that those who wish him harm not only feel the way they wanted to do to him, but that they can't and won't ever again even think of anything bad, especially towards him. In fact, she doesn't care whether she can do it or not. The main thing is to save the man who saved her recently. Lily doesn't even know what will happen to her if she learns of his death for the second time, let alone witnesses it. She decided that even if he died, she still wouldn't let him get hurt and would do everything possible and impossible to prolong his life as much as possible. She would almost be his personal bodyguard. At the very last moment, when she managed to punch a hole, she screamed that love conquers all. Her first goal is to find her lover, so she must go to the dormitory and preferably do it as quickly and discreetly as possible. But there is one problem. She is almost not oriented in this area and has no idea how to guess where the academy is. If she goes to the wrong building, her enemies will take the opportunity to destroy her on the doorstep. But that wasn't all. She had to contend with bats, some strange energy around her that made her question even more if it was safe to move around here alone. Not many people were treating her well enough as it was. Once outside, it didn't end there. She was chased by some magical broomsticks that kept speeding up and catching up with her. This is the entrance to one of the dorms. It's really nice here, but if it wasn't so dangerous, she'd love to go in for a tour. But since there are vampires everywhere, it is better to appear only where she is sure that everything will be safe and secure, or at least that there will be someone who can protect her. In any case, there is no need to stop. If not hurry, the guy will be in danger. After allocation to hostels, there will be a welcome party, and the moment a guy takes a sip of tea and from his cup, he will feel incredible pain and at first will not even understand what it is connected with. In fact, in this cup will already be holy water. It is impossible to recognize it by taste. So, this method will really work. She is most afraid of seeing him with a cup of tea. For now, the plan is to replace the cup and make William drink normal tea. And if the cup with the poisoned tea is already in his hands, it will be very difficult to explain and confess what is inside it. If she tells the truth and says she saw some guy and knows who did it, she could get in trouble herself. So you really have to tread as carefully as possible. At some point, the girl got confused and forgot where the entrance was. She got confused and started to fear meeting some of the ill-wishers. Just as she thought, someone noticed her. The guy got excited because he remembered that it was the same girl who was at the ceremony. He started to call himself lucky, except that he was already up to something. Lily tried her best to hide the fact that she was very scared, and instead started asking where she could find the dormitory she needed. Instead of getting nervous and asking him to calm down, she started attacking him and explained that the academy director's life depended on her now, so he had to help. Otherwise, if she succeeded, she would tell him later that he had stopped her and refused to help on purpose. And surprisingly, it worked. He immediately stopped being so cocky and showed the way, and then asked her to move away from him to a safe distance. Signs that this vampire was not as scary as he tried to make it seem. Lily had learned one very important lesson. No matter how scary the situation was, she should always be confident and not show fear to anyone. As soon as she got to the right doors, she began to doubt whether anyone would let her in at all. But since the lesson had already been learned, she forgot about the fear and tried to instill in herself the fact that nothing is impossible. Besides, the girl had already promised herself that she might risk her life once in a while. The main thing was to keep William alive. Meanwhile, he has a cup in his hands. He is talking to the students and telling them different stories. Everyone listens attentively, but one of the people present cannot wait for the moment when he finally drinks this drink. It means only one thing. The guy has an enemy for a long time, and it's possible that this person is his direct competitor. It is not surprising because it is his dormitory that most students dream of getting into. The others feel less in demand, so maybe someone really dreams of getting rid of him. Besides, these people can be several. After that, he started to say very important words, congratulated everyone on their enrollment, and asked them not to disappoint their teachers, because they will try to make professionals out of them. And since this is very important and should be appreciated, he didn't miss the opportunity to remind and explain how important it is, because the better relationship everyone has with their teachers, the easier the school year will go. This way they won't hate, they'll have more motivation and positive emotions during school time, which is very important from day one. Just as the guy was about ready to drink that tea, literally the second Lily walked into the hall and turned her attention to him. Luckily, he didn't have time to take a sip of it. As he heard her scream and forgot about that drink, the girl started to approach him directly, just like then at the ceremony. Only now she knows what she's doing and won't stop until she's done. Her goal is to save the principal by any means necessary, no matter who gets in her way. She didn't say anything. She silently walked over and said that he shouldn't drink this tea. The girl thought to take the cup right away and not explain anything, but that way he would only get angry, and in this case, he would be interested to ask a question and find out what she means. The guy is very surprised and really has no idea why she's trying so hard to keep him away from that tea. Since he had already realized that there was something wrong with this tea, she let herself knock the cup out of his hands and make it so that he no longer had a chance to drink even one sip of it. The cup is completely broken, respectively. The water will not get into his body, unless, of course, someone tries to make another portion again. It so happened that a shard from a cup accidentally hurt his finger, but judging by his reaction, he does not even understand how to react to it, because on the one hand, the girl wanted to help, and on the other hand, he ended up hurting himself. The situation is too ambiguous. Everyone is scared because last time he warned that if such a situation happens again, everyone will suffer without exception. After the cup was on the floor, everyone suddenly smelled the country's aroma. Some felt sick, and some hardly even felt anything at all. Lily's very frightened. She hasn't had time to explain, and it's not clear what she'll get for it. It all depends on William's mood. She starts to ask if everything is okay, and despite everything, she lets herself hug him again. She doesn't just touch. She literally pounces on him. Anyway, no matter how he reacts to it, she'll still be satisfied, because the main thing is that he wasn't hurt, and she was able to keep him safe. She can't contain her emotions, because it turns out that just now, she saved not only him, but also herself, because if she saw one more of his death, she would not be able to survive. At one point, Very much ruined by one of the people present, he asked permission to get back at this girl for this behavior. Not surprising if it was the same guy who wanted to poison him. He starts yelling really loudly, like really something didn't go according to plan. The guy thinks the principal definitely won't stop him and give him a chance to get revenge, Lily. But that didn't happen. William asked him to stop and made it clear that she would handle it without his help. Lily smiled again, because it meant that he was protecting her again and was going to find out what she knew after all. In the end, no one listened to him. Some took the opportunity and started to drive her away from the director, but the girl is not afraid of anything. She managed to do everything, and that's the main thing. She realizes that they will probably try to scare her again, but even so, she continues to smile and rejoice that she saved her lover. At some point, everyone began to realize the situation, and William was not an exception. He again thought about it and asked everyone to move away from him, but some distance, because he feels that someone is not exactly who he is. At some point, he realizes that the pain in his finger is getting worse by the second. His assistant suggested that such pain can only appear after holy water, because ordinary tea can't do anything like that. Without thinking long, everyone immediately realized that there was holy water in the cup, which could poison him very badly. He asked his aides that they should not touch this liquid, for even without wounds, they might also develop unbearable pain. After that, he immediately looked in the girl's direction, and as if in a few seconds, he immediately realized that she just wanted to help out. He realized that she wanted to protect him, and that it was probably not insolence on her part, but rather, she wanted to do what was best for him and spare him from terrible suffering. William walked up to her and told her that if she could hear him, he wanted to apologize, and of course, escort her to the nearest room. After a vampire attack, she needs at least a few days of peace and safety. He said he would take it himself and ordered that no one was to go near it anytime soon, or whoever tried to do so would be very sorry and punished. It's not surprising that some people didn't realize what had happened, but the main thing is that the director figured it out. He will definitely feel differently about her, and will probably want to know a lot more than just the fact that she's one of the students. As usual, there were various rumors, discussion, and discontent of some of those present. Most began to envy, because for some reason, he pities Lily and treat her in a special way, completely different from everyone else. As soon as she regains consciousness, she opens her eyes and realizes that she is being carried by a man. She looks at his face and realizes that this is definitely a dream, because nothing like this could be possible. She had originally dreamed of just hearing his voice or touching his finger, but now William was carrying her in his arms after saving her from the vampires. Her heartbeat accelerated a lot. She started to get a headache and a feeling of anxiety. The girl couldn't even dream about it. She starts to inhale the beautiful aroma, and there is no way she can enjoy it. Now she's afraid to think it's a dream, so she just stays silent and doesn't react in any way, which is very hard to do. She was beginning to be soothed by the scent of lily of the valley, which she associated with purity, and she also sensed a slight citrus bitterness that finally made her fall in love with this man. At some point, Lily suddenly realized that it was probably not very easy for him to carry her in his arms. At first, she thought of asking him to let her go, but then she thought that it was still unknown when she would have the chance to do so, so she left it as it was. The only thing she could do, since she was already in such a situation, was to pretend that she had accidentally hugged him in her sleep and did it unconsciously. The guy immediately noticed it and asked if she was awake already. Then, he sped up and threw her right on the bed, then warned her that she would have to answer a lot of questions. The girl laughed and said she would be happy to answer any question he was interested in. William said he was interested in everything she knew about the poisoned drink, her identity, and more. And then, he snapped his finger and some clothes appeared in the air. The guy didn't warn about it or explain what it meant. After that, he asked for any wounds, even minor ones, to be treated so as to be less likely to attract vampires in the future. He warned that if she didn't want to be attacked, she'd better take care of it soon and take it seriously. The girl remembered that it was actually true. Even in the game, minor injuries and an open neck could be dangerous, especially in the presence of vampires. After she'd already done everything, she waited for the next question, and it would probably be about that poison tea the guy had already guessed about. As suddenly, Lily felt the mirror behind her as if forcing her to look in his direction. The girl turned around and felt some strange energy. After that, heard a voice so unpleasant that it would immediately make you want to go into another room and never hear it again. A creature starts talking to her, and she doesn't understand what it is. Lily feels in danger, but at the same time, it's as if something is keeping her from leaving. She saw some kind of dark bat in the mirror, inviting her to come closer and closer. Lily does not understand anything, but at the same time, afraid to refuse, she became very scared and anxious. It's all very strange, and with each passing second, the mirror begins to beckon her more and more. She has no strength left to resist. The closer she gets to it, the nicer the voice seems to her. It says he's been waiting for her for a long time, and he starts to help her with his hands. It looks really creepy, but Lily doesn't notice any of it. She is completely out of control and no longer resists. Her eyes are closed when suddenly, at the very last moment, William comes out. He sees it and immediately grabs her hand. He probably knows what it is, so he reacted so fast he's semi-conscious and doesn't fully realize how dangerous it is. William looks at this mirror and channels some kind of power into it to destroy the creature that almost dragged the girl to the other side. He uses a special technique, and in the end he decided to smash it into little pieces. As suddenly, Lily slowly regains consciousness and can't believe that some creature tried to grab her and drag her to the other side of the mirror. After that, she starts asking what just happened. The guy calmly looks toward the mirror and says, "This isn't the first time this has happened here." He told her she was spoken to by a monster who manipulates the mind and takes the victim into a mirror. Some stay there forever, and sometimes when the monster is in a good mood, he allows them to go back. But still, those who have returned from there are even afraid to remember what they experienced there. Some have given up mirrors altogether because they are afraid that it will happen again. So far, the guy doesn't even look her way. It's like he's waiting for something, but he doesn't hint at it. The girl is grateful to him again, because once again he saves her and does not ask for anything in return. She immediately realized that he is a kind man and wonders how it is possible, because in front of her is a real vampire. When suddenly he saw on her face a slight wound from the glass, and at the same second she was very much frightened, for if he could not restrain himself, he would be forced to attack, and then she would be very much hurt. He immediately asked her to move to a safe distance, or better yet, to leave the room altogether. He's got real fangs, but only because he treats her well and she saved him from poisoned tea. But he's still trying to hold back, even though it's hard. At one point he couldn't help himself, grabbed her and started warning her that she had her last seconds left. After that time, he just wouldn't control himself. He looks at her with a predatory gaze, as if he's holding on with his last strength. He doesn't know how long he'll be able to hold on, but at least Lily has been warned. She should realize that she should be careful around a vampire, especially if there are any wounds on his body. But instead of running away, she smiles and says that he needs to calm down, as if that's easy to do. Of course it didn't work out, and since she didn't run away, anything can happen now. At first she was very scared, and then she believed in herself again and thought that maybe he was also not as scary as he might seem at first glance. Instead of being nervous and afraid of him, she began to enjoy this beautiful view that she had only been able to admire through the screen before. She doesn't know what to do, because the longer she looks at him, the more she wants to do something she's been afraid to even think about. The moment he was too close, she wanted to kiss him, but the vampire did it for something a little different. He asked her to bear with him for a few seconds and promised it wouldn't hurt too much. At least he would try to. After she realized that it was inevitable and she was going to have to endure the pain anyway, she of course tried to stop him, but the guy explained that it was too late and asked her to trust him. He'll try to be as careful as possible and minimize her pain as much as he can. Lily has no idea what's about to happen because she's never seen him like this before, especially in a situation where there's nothing she can do now. He starts to take her hand, and for the first time decides to apologize for the way he's about to treat her. Apparently the guy realizes that he won't be able to hold back, and even if she wants to leave, he won't be able to let go. He looks her straight in the eyes, as if he's been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The guy himself not realizing why he treats her so special, unlike how he treats the rest of them. He was sorry that the girl didn't escape. He really wanted her to succeed, because after that she would be afraid of him, and he didn't want that to happen. He wants to keep things normal so they can talk and not have to remember what's about to happen. In any case, he warned her and gave her the opportunity to leave. And since the girl was highly opinionated, stayed, and now it would be strange to blame him for anything. In any case, when one sees fangs in front of them, it's uncomfortable. But Lily decided not to react in any way to avoid making things worse. She endured the pain in silence, though in truth it was not so terrible as she had imagined it to be. She didn't even notice when it happened. It's like he just felt sorry for the girl and didn't do anything. She opens her eyes and looks at him and tries to figure out what's wrong. Lily imagined it would hurt so much that she might even pass out. For some reason, he looks at her like he has a lot of regrets, or that he failed at something. At some point, Lily remembers that she completely forgot something. Turns out it's that the guy hates to do it. His family has been cursed for a very long time. It's rare, but sometimes it's very hard to stop. His family was tormented by this curse, but over time the guy became very lonely, and so did the rest of the family. There was a moment when he saw dead relatives, and from that moment on, he hated to look at any injury, even a minor one. I can see why he wouldn't want to hurt a girl he's good to, as suddenly she took him by the head and decided to do something. It was as if she wasn't happy with the result and was up to something. She really wants to see him sad, so their meeting doesn't end there. At this point, it was very hard for him to hold on, and instead of biting her, he did it to himself. The girl saw it, and too had time to close her eyes, for if she had seen it, she would not be able to sleep well for months at least. He apologized and told her not to worry, and also said he would be fine. The main thing was that she wasn't hurt and wouldn't be afraid of him. He said there should be a blue bottle somewhere on the shelf, and if it was there, he asked me to bring it over immediately. Lily didn't delay for a second. She ran straight to the shelf and started looking for the right jar to make him feel better as soon as possible. Turns out the guy asked to bring a cure that will make him stop thinking about hurting someone. He needs to extinguish his vampire desire and do it as soon as possible. She ended up finding him very quickly and started to hope that everything would be all right. She realized that when a vampire awakens in him, it's best to really stay away and listen when he tries to save her or warn her about something, like he had just now. She handed over this medicine and told me to drink it as soon as possible. No one knows how many minutes later everything might reappear. In fact, it is enough for him to just smell the scent, and that will be enough, only in special cases. When the vampire is very evil, one smell may not be enough, and in his case, you can do it this way. In fact, he is very pleased that the girl was not afraid, and even when she had the chance to run away again, she stayed and brought him the medicine even though she took a great risk. He started to apologize for not insisting that she leave and be safe after all. He usually locks himself away and never allows himself something like that. The guy was really scared that he wouldn't be able to hold back and he could hurt her, but luckily it all worked out and no one was hurt. Afterward, William thanked her for everything she'd done and promised that sooner or later, he'd think of something to thank her and give her a little surprise. Of course, the girl was very glad, for she had always dreamed of hearing such words from him. It was the best gratitude he could express, so nothing more was needed. She's very happy that everything worked out so well, and despite all the risks, she accomplished her mission. At least he's starting to trust her now. They are no longer just strangers, but someone you can turn to for help or to learn something from. Then she chose a suitable outfit for herself and decided to do something else, since the day wasn't over yet. She is very happy with this clothes because it was picked up by William himself. The girl is very happy and does not even know what else to think of interesting. Eventually, they went with him to the academy director, who invited them to a very important conversation. After all that had happened, he clearly had something to say and talk about. He said he already had one very surprising decision to make about her being a student at this academy. He started by saying that she was a human, not a vampire, so she didn't have any resistance to magic. Plus, physically, she was really losing to everyone else, and the wounds she received only showed vampiric intentions in everyone around her. At first, she thought she was going to be expelled, and even got a little upset, because that was what she was most afraid of hearing. The headmaster explained that it was really very dangerous, and if she so-and-so wanted to study, it would be better to do it in the normal world where there were no vampires and everything that could threaten her. After that, he came to the point of this conversation and proposed one very interesting option. He wants to use magic to send her to the farthest country of people, where she will be much more comfortable and safe. The thing is that humans and vampires are separated by a very powerful barrier. It's impossible to pass through it just like that. You need magic, so the decision should be made right now. If she doesn't want to do it, she will stay here and will never be able to get to the human world again. And if she agrees, she can never go back and they will never meet again. It's a very difficult choice. So the principal gave her some time. Lily immediately thought not of her own safety, but of the fact that if she went to the normal world, she would not be able to help her pet anymore. She started crying. She can't look anyone in the eye anymore, because she doesn't want anyone to see that she wanted to stay here so badly. At one point, the principal asked William if he was okay with the idea and what he thought about it in general. The boy thought very seriously, for Lily's fate would depend on this decision. In the end, he thought briefly and decided that humans and vampires couldn't live in the same world. So she'd have to accept the fact that it was very dangerous here after all. Humans can harm vampires, and vampires can harm humans. That's not good, so as much as she's interested in here, she needs to make the right decision. Of course, the girl wanted to hear a little different. But on the other hand, it's not surprising. She realizes herself that I'm really very dangerous to be here. Besides, the guy on his part is trying to take care of her and suggesting the most suitable options. The director replied that he heard him. Meanwhile, the girl was already thinking about the fact that she needed to think of an option that would allow her to stay here and change William's fate. She definitely doesn't plan on staying here. Some of the academy has learned that there is a very important conversation going on right now, so of course she decided to participate in it. The other dorm directors also think she'd be better off leaving, and it's not surprising. Nothing else the girl expected to hear from them. For now, she listened silently to them and tried to think of how to answer in such a way that no one else will try to change their mind and agree to stay in this academy. Since William will be dead in about a year, she should stay here anyway and hold out for at least that long. As suddenly came that principal who really wants the girl to stay here. He even promised to keep her safe and said he could take that responsibility if that's the only problem discussed in this conversation. He'd do anything to have a beautiful girl like Lily among the students. Judging from his look and manner, the girl knew at once what he was interested in and began to be a little wary of him. If she does stay here, she'll have to make sure she's safe. At some point, William notices this guy's behavior and without hesitation, removes his hand and asks him to leave this office immediately. It can only mean one thing. Either he's just protecting a defenseless girl, or he has some kind of affection for her. Suddenly, she had a brilliant idea. She stopped doubting and decided that once again she needed to show her confidence, so that no one could even think that she would have a hard time here. She walked over to the principal's desk and said with a confident look that she had made her final decision. Namely, that she wants to stay here and it's no longer up for discussion. If there's a problem about her safety, she promised she could work something out with that, and he wouldn't have any problems because of it. William heard this and was very much surprised. He doesn't understand what keeps her here so much, after all, in the ordinary world, and really would be much better and more familiar than here. She has no idea what she's going to do next, but at the same time, she knows she's not going to leave here. She must protect William in any way she can, even if it's impossible, just as she promised herself from the beginning. At some point, the girl didn't realize she'd said it out loud, which only made one of the directors laugh and feel a little awkward. She herself realizes that they were really very funny to hear that, but not everyone realizes that she can actually do it if only given the opportunity. Even the director of the academy laughed. He tried to take her seriously, but it didn't work, and it's quite normal, because no one even knows how she got here and what her mission is. And since it's really better for no one to know about it, it would be better if they just laugh and consider her a country. The headmaster of the academy asked her opinion again, and this time he allowed her to stay for a few weeks. Lily was upset at first because she didn't understand why not forever. The guy didn't explain his decision, though perhaps that would be enough time for him to no longer doubt her and agree to do just enough to make her happy. He said that it would be the responsibility of the academy director since he had originally said his opinion, and since the girl wanted to stay so badly, he would give her some time to convince herself and want to teleport to another world where she would be better off. After that, he turned to the girl and said that he didn't expect to hear something like that from her. Anyway, he was sure that for her it was just an interesting adventure and nothing more, though he was very much mistaken. In the end, he said it was possible and really worth honoring her decision and giving her the option to stay. After that, they started to go about their business, and Lily caught up with him and asked him what about the room, for she hadn't even seen it yet. To answer that question, he wanted to say something very important, namely that since she had saved him several times, in return, he would be obligated to protect her for as long as she was here. Of course, that's very nice to hear, but after that conversation, she still had an unpleasant feeling of, it's like everyone wants her to leave and she stays, adding to everyone's problems. In the end, she has to come up with a plan to stay here and she has a week to do it. If she doesn't come up with anything, she'll be sent to the human world. Since the boy had already promised to keep her safe, he thought it would be better if they had one room for two. He thought it was the safest place to be. No one would come in here without his permission, and especially no one could hurt her. Lily thought she was just hearing things, because every time they talked about something, another dream came true. In any case, nothing to worry about for now. The main thing is to think things through and be wary of those who treat her badly.